everyone, welcome to Tuesday Tanking. Something a little bit different this week. We're going to take a look at War Thunder and how to get started in it. Now when you first fire up War Thunder, one of the first things that you'll see is this screen, which gives you an incremental prize each day, and they get to be more and more valuable if you log in day after day after day. I've not logged in for a couple of days, therefore I'm back to the day one starter prize on the carousel, and that's going to give me a boost of 15% to research XP, normally for about 10 battles. Yeah, there we go. Once I trigger it, it'll last for one day, and it's good for up to 20 missions. It's the first time I've seen the 20 missions one. Normally it's just 10. Okay, so just close that and we go into the hangar. Now I know it's Tanking Tuesday. I was playing aerial battles a few days ago, so down here at the bottom of the screen you can choose between aviation or army. If I switch across to army, it changes to my tank garage, and what I'm just going to do is I'm going to kill the background music. Where do we do that? In here somewhere, probably game options, sound, there we go, music volume in menu, we just drop it down a little bit. I'll take that one down to nigh on 0 as well. Take some of the engine volume down as well. Let's see how that does. Will that let you hear me? We've still got the ambience there to reduce. Special effects volume. Try that. Yeah, it's a little bit better. But let's just take some of those background noises down a bit further. Just drop down this a little bit for the sake of doing this talk through. There we are, that's a lot better. Now, one of the things about the music in this is that you tend to get a lot of Russian and German martial music, very little British, even though I'm playing the British line exclusively in this game at the moment. That's something you have to live with. You either turn it off or you let it play. Now, in the garage there's a few things that you'll find are very different if you're used to World of Tanks or even used to Armoured Warfare. So one of the first things is that on a tank you can look at the armour. Get rid of the game menu. Alright, let's pick a tank, see if we can get the menus to jump. And you know what? I don't know what's happening with this menu. I've never had this issue before. There we go, got rid of it. Right. So you can look at the armour of a tank and you can see that it colours where your different armour points are. So for example, the gunner's viewport or the driver's viewport is a weak spot. The armour around it is not particularly great. Even down here it's not particularly good. The angling up here gives it a better strength. You can see that's your spaced armour on your tracks and so on. But let's just set the garage back to how it was when I got it. So if I just pick a vehicle, in this case the Cromwell, which just let you see it, and you'll see that it's very much different to the modelling in World of Tanks. Yeah, it looks a lot more realistic, shall we say. Oh, the X-ray button. Yeah, you can see where your crew and your ammo is inside. This helps you with targeting weak points. One of the big things in this game is losing crew members. The game shows you a replay of how you were hit and what was knocked out. It helps you a lot. It helps you to target enemy tanks, but it also helps you to protect your own tank. Anyway, I was going to show you. If we take this back to here, and you can see this crew has played these vehicles, and we can take it all the way back to the beginning. Now, the earliest tank that you get on this tree is the A13 Mark 1, which is classified as a reserve tank, as you see down here. Now, if we then look at the crew, you'll see that they're not losing any skills for going back to an earlier tank. Skills that you've acquired in this tank are still there, plus crew attributes like these remain with the crew and build up as you gain XP, and when you go back to an earlier tank you've still got them. Now, one of the first things that you want to do with a tank is go to your crew qualification and choose to set them as experts. What that does is, in all of their attributes, it gives you this +3, which improves how they perform in battle. So, we just hover on that one. You can see the calculation there, that in repairing the tank, the total time is 37.2 seconds, made up of a base 43.02 seconds, minus their skill training, minus the bonus for being skilled up on the qualification tab, and then minus a flat rate for awards and achievements. Now, as you build up these, there's 10 steps. You build them up in half steps until you get fully qualified. Once you've got a number of these buttons filled in, your crew level starts jumping, and once you get up to, and it varies by tank, once you get up to in this case a 40 crew level, you can qualify to get the ACE achievement, which adds further points to your crew skills. Now, this is all very different to how it happens in World of Tanks or Armoured Warfare, and this can be quite confusing when you first start the game. If you look at this particular tank, you can see at the moment my radio operator, who doubles up as a secondary gunner, does not have any points here. He does have points here, and I've focused on the commander and the loader and the gunner initially for this crew, and also on the driver. You will find the driver skills make a hell of a difference in the tank handling. You can really feel the difference when you're playing the game with the driver's skills as they build up, and it's the same on the aerial side of this game. As your pilot skills build up, you can feel a hell of a difference in the handling of the aircraft. Gaijin have done a fantastic job on transmitting through those benefits into the actual gameplay. So my radio gunner is who I'm focusing on next. This is how many points in XP points he needs to gain to finish these 4 skills and have the whole crew then at the same level of half of the first skill button. At which point I will then go back to the gunner and I will finish his skills on the first button, followed by every crew member getting the keen vision skill up to the first button, because that helps with spotting. So that's how your skills break down for your crew. The other thing that you have to do for each individual tank is modifications. And as you get experience in battle, you can see I've done this one fully already. As you get experience in battle, you build up the points to get these different things. Now, as you finish each row of modifications, what that then gives you is additional points, like booster points, which go towards your research for your next vehicle. And you can see here, you start off with these top 4 vehicles with a crew for each, and you research individual vehicles by getting those research points, which you can see that's the blue light bulb. And up here at the top of screen you can see I've got 250,000 of the white light bulb, and I can convert them to blue by using coins, which at the moment I'm not doing in this game, but I may have to when I hit the higher tiers. Now, one of the other things that you find in this game, does it show on the Cromwell? No. If I just jump across to aerial, I'll probably need to close these screens just to show it to you. If I look at the research tree, why is it showing? Oh, I could have just done it from there. Right. The Wellington looks like it's a single aircraft research, but it's not. You see this button here? It means that you have to go through each of these levels of aircraft model number to finish all the research on the Wellington. And once you've done that, you can then research the Halifax. You can see it here for the Spitfire as well. There's a button here. There's 2 aircraft in the Spitfire 5 series, and in the Firefly, again, there's 2 in that series for researching. And you'll see this on some of the trees down here, for example, on the Spitfire stroke Griffin, and on the Meteor. And if we go back to the Army line, to the ground forces, I'm not seeing any there. Maybe the British line doesn't have it. It's possible that the German line does, or the Russian line. Anyway, this allows you to track your researches and decide which vehicle you're going to research next. One of the things that gets confusing is which crew to put in which. Now, what I've tried to do is I've tried to use the same crew down this line, and then a different crew down this line, and again over here and over here, so that in the ground forces I've got 4 crews. I'll just switch back to Army. You can see there I've got 4 crews, and I've got 2 spare crews who've not been assigned to anything yet. I may assign them to premium tanks, or if I decide I want to keep a tank and move up the research and get the next tank anyway, what I might do is keep the primary crew in the tank that I'm researching, and move one of these crews to the tank that I'm keeping, in much the same way that you can have multiple crews in World of Tanks and you can skill them up for specific tanks. But in this case, they keep the skills for the tanks that they've already played. Now, I think that's a nice feature, because you're not having to spend a load of credits or gold to move a crew back down the tech tree to get to a tank that they've already mastered. So that's the primary areas that are different here in the garage or the hangar, and you select which nation by clicking on these bars, and I'm trying to make it stay with Army. So there's your first Russian tank on the German line. It's your first two German tanks, Panzer 2C, which everybody will be familiar with from other games, and the Panzer 35T, which again we all know and love from other games. Now just look at the detail on the rolling stock here and on the tracks, and the detail that's been put into the armour plates. You know, rust on individual rivets and others that are not rusty. You know, I mean, this is just, look at the headlight. The detail on the graphics in this game is just fantastic. And then for the American line, again, we'll go back to the grounders. There's your opening tank, an M2A4, which was like the precursor to the Stuart tanks. And I mean, look at this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 machine guns, plus its cannon. Right. Now the great thing in this game is that these machine guns work. So, you know, you're looking at 5 machine guns, and I don't know if they're 303s or 762s or 50 cals. I haven't played this tank, although we can check. If we go to modifications, there we are, the 762 machine guns and a 37mm main gun. You know, and it's pre-completed some of the research for me, even though I've never played the tank, leaving me a patchwork of modules to upgrade. So, you know, there's two purposes for those machine guns. One is fighting other vehicles, which at this tier the machine guns can damage them. The other is for anti-aircraft fire, because you can switch between tanks and aircraft in different battles, providing that the battle has a respawn ability, which I'll go into later. So, to jump back to your other nations, oh, and yeah, there's the Japanese start of it. You only start with aviation on the Japanese tree, you don't get ground forces. So, if we jump back to the British line, which I'm working on, so it's the AC-30, and I'm going to show you a battle that this was in, and you notice up here your battle type menus. You've got air and tank arcade battles, air and tank realistic battles, and simulator battles. Then you've got your events and tournaments and custom battles. We're going to look at some arcade battles today. Now, arcade battles are a bit different to your standard random battles that you're used to in other games. Armoured Warfare and World of Warships, and I believe World of Warplanes have a similar feature in that if there is not enough players to fill up each team, the game will push in bots. These are artificial intelligence computer PvE players who fill up the teams for both sides. And that's a little bit different to World of Warships, where you have the co-op battles, where you can have one team of humans and one team of AI players. In Armoured Warfare, you have the PvE missions, where you get 5 players on one side and a collection of bots on the other. In this one, you have live players and bots on both sides, and you're normally allowed to respawn 3 times in a battle, but you have to change tank each time unless you have reserve vehicles for the tank. And that shows, if we go into the modifications, you can see up here backup vehicles. I haven't got any on this particular one, but I've got several on most of my other ones. You get these as prizes for certain achievements in battles, but not in the arcade battles, in the realistic battles. And it means that if you want to really grind a tank and you're doing arcade battles, you can play your actual tank. When it gets killed, you can respawn with the backup vehicle and continue building up the XP on this vehicle here. So it means that you can race through all the researchers very quickly. So just go back to the battles menu. Realistic battles are what we're more used to as random battles in other games. There's no respawn generally. The tank that you take out is the only tank that you get, and when it's killed, you're out of the battle. But you can watch other players the same way as most other games. The simulator battles I've not played yet. To be honest, I'm struggling enough to build up the skills playing realistic and arcade battles. But I'll get to it at some point in the future and make a video of it for you. So those are the battle types, and obviously the 2 battle button is the same as anywhere else. Now I'm just going to kick this back to the Cromwell so that I don't forget that that's what I'm playing, and we'll go and have a look at some early battles in that AC-13 and some of its compatriots at the time. I think it was the Crusader and the Valentine. We'll have a look at how they go. Events and tournaments I'm not going to look at today because they're quite overwhelming at this point in the game. So let's go have a look at a battle. Okay, here we go. And this view is not one that you normally see in ground battles. I'm just messing about with the replay menu at the top. You can see that it's got, what's it, 6, 7? It's got about 10 controls there that let you get different views of the battlefield during a replay, not during the battle. And it lets you mess around with graphical views. So here we are in, well, we're in first player's view. This is free camera view, and you can see that we're moving up to the starting positions for the battle. And that machine gun fire that you can hear hitting the ground behind us is one of the human players, not one of the bots, opening up with their machine guns during the initial movements away from the spawn. So this this problem exists in War Thunder as well as in World of Tanks, and as regular viewers will know, it's one of the actions of players that I really don't like. It's too easy to get a team kill or team damage. Just don't do it, guys. You know, why put yourself at a disadvantage by taking out a fellow player? Now, one of the other things that, if you've come from other games, that you'll notice is that the movement on the tanks is quite twitchy. This is particularly true until you get your driver's skills up, as I talked about earlier in the garage. But it's also, in some ways, a bit more realistic than you'd be used to in World of Tanks, because, you know, the tracks are controlled independently. You can have them both going forward, both going backwards, one moving at a different speed to the other for turning, and it takes quite a bit of mastering. The game takes care of that for you. It's only interested in your left and right direction keys, but it is quite easy to spin the tanks. The other thing to note is you see that tree go down and how it disappeared after it went down. Unlike World of Tanks, you can't knock over a tree and use it as a camouflage soft cover, because destroyed vegetation gets removed from the game in War Thunder. So if you want to use soft cover to hide yourself, you have to leave it standing. You can't knock it down to increase the density of that cover. Now, I've played this map before, but this is only about my 10th battle in War Thunder, in tanks, so I'm coming up to this position, which I know is where we usually encounter the enemy, and I've let a couple of our bot players go on ahead to do the spotting, and this is one of the reasons why. And you can see in the bottom right of the screen the replay of what happened with my shot. I damaged his track, and that shot went in and took out his crew, and he's now removed from the map. He doesn't stay as a dead tank, he's off to respawn. There's another one, shot into him. You can see my shot hits the track, goes through, takes out his engine and one of his crew. And now we get into my farming position, shall we call it, on this map, because this is where I'm going to farm a lot of damage and a lot of kills. The bot players on the enemy team, there's about 12 on each team with 4 humans, all seem to lemming train around here, and I'm just going to farm them and build up my damage and my kills. And again, in the bottom right of the screen you can see I took out his transmission there, so he's jammed for a bit. I can look at the other tanks and then come back to him. And if you watch the team lists on the top left and top right of screen, you'll see when a player is greyed out, they've been killed, they've gone back to the garage to respawn. If they remain greyed out, nice underside hit there, took his entire crew out, so he's dead. If they remain greyed out, it means they've run out of respawns. And sometimes when you respawn, as you'll see later in this battle, you come onto the map and all of the enemy players are greyed out. And you think, oh well, that must be the end of the battle, they're all dead. No, there'll still be some of them in the garage respawning. And that was a good engine hit, stopped him dead. Now I can focus in on his crew compartment and destroy him. You can get surprised by that. You can go out thinking, oh, there's only 1 or 2 players left, and then suddenly another 5 or 6 respawn, and if you're not careful, you could actually be in their respawn, and suddenly there's 6 tanks around you when the second before there was none. So there we are. There's a nice ricochet replay in the bottom corner, and it's worth watching these replays from your garage. Tracked him, took out his drive wheel, because it helps you to understand why you're not killing people, or why you are killing people, a lot better than any of the replays you would see in other games. There's a good one. That took out his loader and his engine. That was an engine hit. Aim for his turret, and I must have missed that completely. There we go. Straight through the crew compartment. Damaged his ammo, but didn't kill him for some reason. Now watch the aiming reticle in the centre of the screen. You see how it's changing between white and green? White is telling you that you either have no shot or no penetrating shot, and green is saying you're on target and can penetrate. You need to watch that little cross, because that's where you have to have that green to do damage. And generally speaking, you want to be aiming that either at the weak points or at the crew compartments, or whatever your priority is for hitting that tank. Sometimes, like that last shot, you can only just get the tip of the turret, but it can be enough to knock out the crew. And in War Thunder, you'll generally find you don't destroy the tank itself. Most commonly, you kill the crew, disabling the tank and taking it out of play, and sending the player back to the garage to respawn in one of these arcade battles, or just taking him out of the game in a realistic or simulator battle. And this becomes even more important when you're playing the aerial side of the game, because if you can't take out the engines on the planes to make them fall out of the sky or shoot their wings off, then you need to be taking out the crew to disable the plane and stop it from fighting. The same applies on the ground. you may be facing up against a much heavier tank, but if you can put a single shell through a weak spot and kill his crew, even though the tank is basically undamaged, you're going to take that tank out of the game. And these bots just love running across this flat bit straight in front of my gun. There you are, there's a nice replay in the bottom corner of the crew being taken out, even though the tank is essentially undamaged. And he'll be off to garage in a second. And there we are, there's 2 out of his 3 crew taken out. But he's still in the game because his gunner's still operational. So we'll have to put another one in and take the rest of his crew out. And aiming in War Thunder in the tanks is a lot harder than it is in other games, because it actually accounts for the shot's trajectory, i.e. it rises and then falls between your gun and the target. It goes in an arc, and you have to aim below the crosshairs, just on that reticle. Now, if you listen, it tells you that artillery fire is incoming. Players, human players, can, once they've got the skills on their radio operator, they can trigger artillery barrages. And the moment you hear the warning, you want to be out of there. But I made a mistake here because I've left an enemy over my right rear while I tried to get these 2. Got one of them there. Well, took his engine out. He's still in the game. Took this guy out, and then I took a shot from down the hill, and I'm dead. Watch the replay. There we are, the shell goes in, takes out all 3 of my crew at once, even though the tank was, previous to that, on almost full health. And it's that little Tetrarch that did it. They are deadly little tanks. They are far more effective in this level at War Thunder than they are at a similar level in World of Tanks. So I'm out in my second tank, which is the Valentine, and this is quite a more heavily armoured tank. It's also a fair bit slower, and its reverse speed is absolutely atrocious. It feels as if you've got out and you're pushing the tank backwards. Its gun is just as good as the AC-13 and not a lot better. And you're going to see me try some sniping here on the way up to the main fighting ground, and you'll see just how difficult sniping is in this game. So we know there's an enemy tank up there. I'm trying to get that little cross to go green. All I've succeeded in doing is making that M2A4 run for cover. It is a bot, so he knows I'm aiming at him. And there, I've just got a green sliver, but I was reloading, and just the slightest movement, I lost the aim. So you can see here just how slow the Valentine is at reversing. And I'm not sure if this is accurate to the real world or not, that tanks reverse that much more slowly than they can advance. Might be true for the British tanks, but I would guess for the Italian tanks, according to reputation, it's not. They had 1 forward and 5 reverse tanks, according to the Desert Rats in the 8th Army, and that was a good long-range snipe. I've injured their gunner and damaged their gun. And you can see just trying to get that green cross on the aiming reticle. It really is difficult in this game. A lot harder than it is in World of Tanks or Armoured Warfare. Red cross, no shot. Had the green and lost it for a second. And you see, I just can't get the aim, so I'll throw a blind shot and hope it hits. And it's probably time to get out of here before somebody homes in on me. So up the hill, following that other light tank. The A and B points, which we have to capture, are not under threat at the moment. Nobody's camping them, neither the enemy nor us. So I've got a bit of time for messing around, and even in this lumbering, slow Valentine, you can see that the steering is quite twitchy. You'll see the tank slew sideways at times, and you know, when I'm trying to dodge an obstacle, there's a tendency to oversteer. And this, you know, it's quite realistic, I suppose, to Caterpillar tracked vehicles. If you think about watching diggers and bulldozers and so on TV, you notice that they don't tend to turn while they're driving. They tend to stop and turn and then drive on. And it's certainly easier to do that in these, but when you're not moving forward, the turning speed of the hull is extremely slow and painfully so. So it is actually slightly better to have some forward or reverse momentum when you're trying to turn and before you try to turn. Okay, we're coming up to one of the cap points. It should be reasonably safe. You can see on the top right of the screen, the enemy's only got 4 tanks on the map. The rest are all either dead or in garage. So we've got almost a full team on the map. The enemy's now got 7 tanks on the map, so they're respawning like mad. If we're going to cap this, we need to do it fast, and there's one, and that's a human player. If you look at the name of the player above the tank, you can tell it's not one of the bots with just a simple first name. So you need to try and get him, and I want to reverse because he's going to come right round that rock, and you can see just how slow the reverse is. And I tried a snapshot and missed. Tried that one and hit his drive sprocket, and finally got one into him, killing him. Don't know if that was me or the other one of our tanks that's round that rock. And from somewhere I've got hit. There we go. There's the shot coming in. One shot. All the crew injured or dead. Ammunition damaged, gun damaged, the tank's out of play. And again, it's a Tetrarch. They really are deadly little tanks in this lower level in War Thunder. So I'm off back to garage to get my next tank, which I think is going to be a Crusader. Now I've got a fairly derpy gun on this, and off we go. But look at the top right and you see that the enemy team has got no tanks on the map, but the map is continuing, or the battle is continuing to play, and that means that they've got people in the garage who are respawning. If they didn't have any respawns left, the game would just stop here and we'd be given the victory, because we've still got players in action on the map. So we know they're going to respawn. The question is how many. Well, there's one come up, one of their bots. Have they got a human player left? Yep, they have. They've got 5 tanks on the map. 2 of them are humans. 3 of them are humans. So we need to get them finished off quite quick. We've still got 3 humans and about 7 bots. We should be able to swarm them and take them down. And again, map. This is because it's an area where they tend to keep turning up because they're going for those cap points. And you can see at this point the video is getting quite jerky. This is just the sheer amount of objects on screen causing a little bit of video stutter. I don't have the most powerful graphics card in this computer, but it's smooth enough during actual play. It's only when I'm doing replays and recording voiceover like this that it tends to be a problem. So again, we're coming up to this cap point, which is where I died earlier. I'm not going to try capping this time. I want to finish off those enemy players. And there's one. And he's just been hit with an artillery barrage. He's still alive. Shot him at the top of his turret, took his gunner out. Try and get him again. That one went into his lower hull, and it's and took his engine out as well. So he's dead. We're down to one human player to defeat. We've now got about 9 or 10 tanks on the map. So if we can't find them, there's something wrong. And odds are he's going to be coming around the back here somewhere. And if you remember, this is where I died in the first tank. But it's a popular spot. And there he is. A little bit of a mistake here. I wanted to check nobody was going to come up that slope and side shot me before I killed him. So have a quick shuft. Nobody down there. And get the turret round, get the hull round. He hasn't even seen me. He's looking at somebody else, and we've got one of our other tanks coming in on him. And my shot there, as you can see, it's taken out his turret crew and his engine. And he's dead, he's blown up and disappeared off. So now we've just got one human player to find, and odds are he's going to rush for the cap because it's about his only chance to win. And where is he? Where is he? There he is down there. Okay, and try and snipe him down. Missed him. Just at that point, somebody else must have got him because the battle ended. And this was my results from the battle. 22 kills, 21 critical hits, 54 total hits. The battle took 9 minutes. We capped one zone. I got a few awards at the top there, a load of research on the right hand side, plus bonus research to the AC Mark II anti-aircraft, because I must have completed a horizontal row of research. Now this was the team scores, and as expected the 4 human players on each side were at the top for each team. Their team, they had 5 of their AI players didn't get any kills at all, whereas on our team we had 7 didn't get any kills. But look at the difference in the human players' kills, which is the column with the little tank at the top. There you go. My 22 kills were the equivalent of all of their humans' kills. And our bots didn't do quite as well as theirs. But what a difference, that the fact that just my kills negated their humans' kills in terms of balancing the scores. And then the other 3 human players on our team got another 17 kills, which is far more than their bots got. So although our AI players did help contribute, there you are, there's the humans' kills, they were just icing on the cake really, our AI players, because we totally outclassed them, both their humans and their AI bots. Now, there's another stat that's interesting on this screen, which is the 2 outside columns on the left and the right, the ones with the skull and crossbones above them. That's how many times the player died. And if you look, they only had 1 AI player left to, with respawns. He'd only died once. He could have respawned another 2 times, but look at our side on the left. We only had 3, 4, 5 of our AI players who had lost all of their respawns. The rest of us, including the human players, all had respawns that we could have come back, and we could have just hounded down that 1 AI player on their team. So I was going to show another video, but we're 45 minutes long on this one already, so I can't. I'll save it for another time. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's helped you to decide whether or not to play War Thunder, and to give you an introduction into doing so. Leave comments in the comment section below the video, and I look forward to reading what you've got to say. Thanks for watching.